I apologize. The agenda and documents are located at https://okc.primegov.com/public/portal. You would then select the Riverfront Design Committee meeting, then click on an agenda item, and the relevant documents will come up below the item. Please see the agenda for additional information regarding meeting procedures and the review process. If you are parked in the Sheridan Walker parking garage north of John Rex Elementary School or in the Arts District parking garage south of City Hall, staff can provide a parking validation ticket to you. Keith, will you please call the roll?
Montoya.
Present.
Prado.
Present.
Dean.
Present.
Howard.
Present.
Postic.
Present.
Ramirez.
Present.
Templeton.
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Item 2A, approval of minutes for the April 4th, 2024 meeting. Do we have a motion?
Templeton would like to make a motion to approve the April 24th meetings as read.
Prado, second.
Thank you. Cast your votes.
I can't see the vote. Okay, yeah, because the vote's not showing up at all. I'm not seeing it. No, okay. So we'll put them on for next month then.
Okay.
Okay.
And just, if you feel you need to abstain, you can abstain, but you're not required to abstain if you were not present. You can still vote to accept the minutes if you've read them, you believe that they're accurate, even if you were not at the meeting, just for everyone's comfort.
Thank you.
Oh, did it? Oh, okay, because I didn't see what it was.
Okay, motion passed, is that correct? Okay. Item 3A, none. Item 4, continuous requests, none. Item 5, consent docket, none. Item 6, cases for individual consideration. Item 6A, SRCA 23-00033 at 4300 River Park Drive. Laura?
Good morning, Laura Griggs, Planning Department. Where is there? Great. So we're way off at the almost western extent of the design district. We haven't really had much out in this area. This is across from the 4 or 5 hotels that have been built adjacent to the river. As I indicated in the staff report, this is a building that was, let's see, was built back in 1976. And we have a new business that's come and they bought it, and they are wanting to renovate the building and renovate the site to accommodate what they use it for. The use is allowed, which is, we consider it construction, sales, and services. And so they're wanting to do, a lot of it is on the front, where they're going to be doing some parking and landscaping, which is, to me, is very exciting to get. And so it's on the south side of Southeast 15th Street. And so adjacent, we have some vacant land. We have the river taxi landing is also across the street. And then we have all the hotels that I mentioned previously. And there is also some one-story, there's some office and other warehouse-type uses adjacent to it, as well as some other hotels. And I didn't even realize that until I got on Google Earth and I was driving around looking at what was around it. So there's probably a large number of hotel rooms in this location because of its proximity to the airport. So I'm just going to go back to this one. As you can tell on the staff report, we didn't have any issues. They meet all the regulations and guidelines. They're touching a lot of this site. I think when they get finished, it's going to look totally different than it does right now. And that's, to me, that's pretty exciting to have somebody willing to put that much money into the site. I have representatives of the case here, if you guys have any questions of them, or right now, if you have any questions of me.
Not hearing any questions. Would the applicant like to add any?
Yeah, they're here if you have any
we have any
questions for them.
questions. Okay,
They'd be happy
yeah.
to come up and,
We're good? No questions? Entertain a motion?
Templeton makes a motion that the staff recommend make a recommendation for the approval of the application based on that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Scenic River Overlay Design District zoning ordinances as referenced in Section C of the staff report.
Second.
Motion passes. Thank you.
thank you. You're good.
Item B, SRC A 24-00007 at 1200 South Walker Avenue. Laura?
This is a request from the Neighborhood Service Organization to demolish a church structure. Before I came back, and Scott might have been on, I'm looking around, might have been on River at the time they came through for their building, their new building. It's directly across from Little Flower Church. They had an older building there, and they came in and got permission to tear it down, and they built a new building. And so they're definitely outgrowing their location. They had an opportunity to purchase the property to the south, which had operated as a church for a while, and this would allow them to expand in several different capacities the services that they provide to the area. And they'll talk to you more about that when they get up to talk. So this structure is listed in Phase 4 of the intensive level survey of downtown, which was done in 2012, as contributing to a potential historic district, which is centered around Little Flower Church, which is directly across the street. And I will kind of go through, I would call it a one-story with raised basement, or it could be a two-story with partially submerged first floor, however you want to refer to that. It sits on a corner, and so that is the building on the right, and on the left is the NSO's building that I was referring to. So this is a neighborhood where we have 100-year-old houses. A lot of them are smaller, but we're also getting, if you haven't been in that area lately, you should. We have, I think, 3 completed new houses out there that meet our regulations and guidelines, and we have another 3 or 4 that are getting started. So we have a lot going on in an area that had seen nothing for quite some time. It's also across the street from, it's just down the street from the Latino organization that's in the old school. And that is their current building that is on Walker at the corner. And then you have Little Flower Church. So, but we also in that area have, one-story older buildings. This building happens to not be used anymore. Little Flower Church owns it, and they use the site for parking. It's directly across the street from the subject site. This building is adjacent to the subject site, and it's just a really small warehouse building. So we have a hodgepodge of all different kinds of things in this area. So let me go back, and we will land on that one. So as I said, the survey indicated that this building was contributing to a potential historic district. There have been several buildings that have been demolished in this potential historic district. I didn't count how many, but there has been no activity on the part of any owner or the city to establish this historic district. I included some information about the Sanborn maps and the fact that the Sanborn maps appear to indicate that this building was built in 1922. The survey forms indicate that it was constructed in 1935. The county landed on some, I think it was 70-something. And I'm not sure where they picked that date from, but it's definitely older than that. The applicant included an engineering report on the building that was included in your packet that had a lot of pictures and had a lot of detailed information. The applicant in their cover letter lists several possibilities, including a parking lot, a new building for a dental clinic, a new administration building, and a new building for a donation center. Whenever they decide what they want to use the property for, they would obviously have to submit a certificate of approval, which might or might not be able to be administratively approved, depending on if it meets all the regulations and guidelines. Sorry, let me flip through all of these pages of the citations from the code. So the regulation guidelines are just guidelines, they're not, I'm sorry, the demolition guidelines are not regulations. So it's a voluntary piece of information. We request the applicant provide us information to address some of what the guideline is talking about as condition, or do they have a replacement project, those type of things. And so in the staff report, I talked through these. Staff does believe that this building is a historic resource and an architectural resource. We acknowledge that it's in pretty bad shape because of lack of maintenance, as well as some things that were done to it that shouldn't have been done to it when you cut through structural members to put plumbing, or you run electrical or whatever, and then you weaken the structural components of the building. The form that was submitted by the engineer stated that, in his opinion, he thought the building had reached the end of the useful life, and that the cost of the required repairs and renovating the building would far exceed the economic value of the building. He also stated that he felt if a fire was accidentally started, there's a reasonable chance that anyone in the building could be killed due to the existing egress issues. Staff is acknowledging that the building is in need of significant repair, but we don't feel that it appears to present an imminent threat to public health and safety due to its physical condition. While concerns related to unauthorized entry and the possibility of a building fire are serious, these concerns are present for any vacant structure, and staff does not believe they constitute the building being an imminent threat to health and safety. We acknowledge that the applicant has indicated they have a long list of things that they are looking to use the property for. They don't have any concrete plans yet. They don't have anything that they can show. I know they're going to talk to you about that because we had a conversation on the phone about it. But staff feels that the property contributes to the urban design form and character of the district, and that the property as a contributing property to a potential district contributes to the history of the district or the city. The applicant has provided a structural assessment that illustrates significant deferred maintenance and the resulting structural and non-structural issues that I have referenced before. The committee may consider any of the demolition criteria as well as the purpose and intent statements in their decision. The downtown development regulations and guidelines clearly support diverse forms of business activity that promote the development and redevelopment of the downtown area. Keeping the existing building could compromise the successful redevelopment of the site. And I probably should have started this by saying, this site is in both downtown and Scenic River. When it's in both, it comes before this body. But I have to use both sets of guidelines and regulations. And so the downtown one has some real specific ones that talk about redevelopment, which is why I reference those there at the end. So I included more than one possibility for you all, depending on where you land. One is if you determine that it is historic and you feel it should be kept, that would be number one. The second one is if you feel it is historic, but you feel that they have provided some information dealing with the condition and you feel that they should be able to tear it down and do something else with the property. That would be number two. Number three would be if you guys decide it's not a historic resource. So just kind of describing, you don't normally get that many choices, and so I've just, so they are here and they have a presentation that they're going to make, but do you have any questions for me right now?
Laura, it appears that the action recommended in option 2 and 3 of the staff recommendation is the same. Am I reading that correctly?
Oh, as far as agreeing for the demolition?
Correct.
Yes, it's just that 2 is you say you would acknowledge that you feel it is a historic resource, but then they've given you all this information and you feel that they should be, yeah. And the last one is you don't feel it's a historic resource.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so 1 is not demo, 2 and 3 would be demo. The easiest way to look at that.
Any discussion? Do we want to talk about an agreement about historic resource? I was at least going to personally feel that it would be, I wouldn't consider recommendation 3, so recommendation 2, acknowledging as a historic resource, but wanted to open that up for discussion.
I'd love to hear from the applicant.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we hear from the applicant?
Okay. Stacy. If you come up, write your name down and identify yourself, and then I will get this over to you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, committee members.
Good morning.
I'm Stacy Nennis, and I am the president and CEO of Neighborhood Services Organization, and I have been serving in that role for 19 years. And so I have been very excited about seeing all of the improvements in the Riverside section of Oklahoma City. So I'm really excited to share with what we plan to do with this new structure. Because NSO, if you haven't heard of NSO, we provide housing and health services to the at-risk and homeless population. And our mission statement is to transform lives and to encourage independence through safe homes, dental care, and nutrition. And NSO has been a part of the fabric of the Riverside community for over 100 years. We actually started the Latino Community Development Agency in the 80s and spun that off. So we love to be a part of that fabric of the community. And in 2023, NSO provided over 300,000 units of service to our community. Therefore, to serve our community in a bigger way and have a bigger impact, we need to expand our footprint. And we have had a growth as our strategic initiative of our board for many, many, many years. And in 2016, NSO reached out to the Crossbridge Community Church with an interest and an offer to buy the property, and the church declined. And in 2017, NSO reached out again, and we received another decline. So the pursuit continued for many years until I received a call from one of the church officials on a Friday afternoon, and they were from Tulsa, and they wanted to sell the church to NSO. And so, of course, I was thrilled because all of this started in 2016. So they indicated that NSO, they wanted NSO to buy it, and they wanted us to have the first opportunity to do so. So of course, I immediately went to work, called the board. They gave me authority to have negotiation power, and I was able to get in contact with our bank, and we work in tandem to get financing. And once the offer was accepted by the church, we had financing. We closed on the property December 6th of 2023. So all of this time, we've been trying to acquire this property. Therefore, that's why the application that you have was submitted to the committee. It did not have an exact plan for the land use. NSO is unsure of exactly what the land use will be because we had to act swiftly to this incredible opportunity. And it did not allow us to develop programming or land use or fundraise. So that's why we're here today. We absolutely know that we will develop the land to expand our footprint in the community and know that whatever we build will meet the regulations of the design district. I'm going to provide you some pictures of the current use and why Crossbridge wanted NSO to buy the property. So this is what's happening right now across the street from the building. Oh, I can just look right here. That's handy. So each Wednesday, this property hosts the Ice Angels Ministry, a ministry that the church loved and knew this program would continue if NSO were the owners. And Ice Angel Ministry provides a hot meal every single week to our unhoused neighbors who are either low income or unhoused. These pictures just depict that people start showing up every single Wednesday around 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and lines start to happen. So there is a lot of activity on the land. So that's why they referenced in there that it could be, sometimes they could break a window, get into the building. So there would be some imminent risk of danger to our unhoused neighbors. So many services happen on that piece of land every single week, such as haircuts, clothing, we do have a pet food pantry. As you can see, the line starts happening, and then they start getting really excited about everything that's gonna happen there. So there is a food truck where they get a hot meal every single week. This is kind of the line where they get to either have clothing or whatever we're able to get. We pass out hygiene kits. So there is a lot of activity that happens on this lot here. So as you can see here, lots of things happen at this particular Crossbridge property. And so acquired the building with the understanding that we could expand, and unfortunately, given the condition of the building, it will not be cost effective to renovate the structure. Therefore, we are requesting to demolish the building for the safety of our Ice Angels ministry. I'm happy to answer any questions. I also brought with me Dr. Steve Ford, who is a structural engineer who did that structural report. And then I also have Kenyon Morgan, who is with me, and he was the architect of our new headquarters on 431 Southwest 11th Street. So I know that they can really talk to the design, form, and urban character of the building, and also the economic feasibility of keeping that structure. But again, I just wanted to share, we are going to continue to expand and serve this in this community in this capacity. And like I said, 300,000 people just through that particular building. Imagine what our footprint could look like if we had a lot more property. So,
And these pictures were from yesterday, correct?
these are from yesterday.
Yeah, so I just wanted,
yes.
they're
And if-
current.
And in the summer months, of course, with school out, I mean, it just becomes really, as you can see there, lots of use. So if we can just expand, that will be, we'll have restrooms for them to use instead of them having to go try to find a location there. Oh, sorry. So that's just the final slide there. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, I have Kenyon and Dr. Steve Ford as well.
Just to clarify, so you're saying that you will wish to continue this service that they're currently doing, but it will not be affiliated to the church?
No, I mean, we own the church now, but we'll probably, what happens is this, they actually bring their own food truck. So this was just a ministry that they were doing, that they were hosting. So we will continue to host it. All of this
You
is
own the
offsite.
building, but not, the church is not going to be meeting there?
The church hasn't met there for quite some time.
They've never, okay.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sorry, I wasn't.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know how long it's been since anybody has occupied the building, given the
It was
condition.
before COVID.
Okay.
Thank you.
So nothing has really even happened inside of that building for many years.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay. So when you're meeting now, you said they weren't using the church. So where do they go to the restroom, or they just sit around under shade trees and chairs? You don't use that building for anything?
We can't. I mean, they don't,
You can't.
the inside of the building, it's really,
I've lived in houses worse than that. That's nothing. I understand it costs
so this
money.
basically, we host it once a week, once a week on Wednesdays. And so it's like for an hour or two as, they get their lunch. So there is no restroom there.
Okay, I'm just seeing people sitting on the porch steps, talking and whatever. So I was just wondering, where do they go to the bathroom now?
Well, I'm not for sure, but if I had to guess, probably behind a building or somewhere in that area.
Okay.
I know there's restrooms now in the park with Lower
Okay.
Sears Hotel,
Okay.
which is just a
Okay.
block away. I think do they have some there by the soccer
Yes, by the
fields?
soccer fields,
Yeah.
there's public restrooms. I don't know if those are unlocked all the time, but they're accessible to the public.
Okay.
And they're just down the street.
So we have no plan at this time to do anything with this lot?
Not at this time, besides, clear the lot of the facility, and then we'll start working on the programming. And like I said, it was we've been trying to get the land since 2016. They called us on a weekend, we're ready to go, and we closed on December 6th of 2023. So we're like 6 months in.
So anything that you build there will have to do with the NSO to benefit, other than a parking lot, it'll benefit the
Yes, it will
people.
expand our service reach.
Okay. Like you said, dental or something.
Yeah, we have a dental clinic that we have sorry. So we do have a dental clinic that we could expand to that location. We have many services throughout Oklahoma City. We have a facility for unhoused moms who have multiple children. We have a facility for unhoused moms who are pregnant or have a child under the age of 5.
But what about this site? We're talking about this site.
Right, so there could be like lots of things that we could utilize that space for, just because we have such a breadth of, we have housing, we have healthcare, so there's many different ways that we could expand our services.
And the one thing I wanted to point out, I don't have a real good shot, but I had pointed out this one-story warehouse building that's south. The church is on the corner of what property they own, and there is a vacant area that is also part of the church property, so they own that as well. So it has a larger footprint than just, okay, that was interesting. Oh,
Laura,
thank you.
I had just pulled that up to
Thank you, yes. So
get a
you
better
can see
shot of
here where the church is, and then you can see all the vacant land. So, that would allow them the ability, they could even have a building and a small piece of a parking lot, potentially, or they could have more than one building, or they could have, just one. So they have a lot of options on that.
But I think the point for me is that they will have to come before again to have whatever
They'll need a CA,
Yes.
and it's depending on what they're doing, they might or might not have to go before the design review body. That is in place at that time. So we've started talking about what the requirements are going to be, and we have minimum height and the maximum setback, and so that we can make sure we don't have any issues as they start planning that. And in the downtown design district, we have a guideline about parking lots on corners, and that would require them to come before the design review body, because we're not really fans of parking lots on corners. They're allowed, but I think if they did a parking lot, it would be probably a temporary thing until they get the funding in place to do a building. Obviously, it'd be cheaper to put in a parking lot than a building in the short term. But they have lots of options.
I mean, I'm not trying to be snappy, but I've lived in the historic preservation district, and I had a house that was way worse than any of this was ever done. And I do believe that everything can be fixed. And, you know, in historic preservation, it usually has to be. So that's my only gripe, though. I appreciate and respect the work you're doing. I just don't want to see a parking lot there, but like you said, that would come before. I would like to see it be used for something that would benefit NSO for sure. But that's later down the road. So I don't always agree with I agree with the structural engineer's report that has seen better days, but I do always feel that we can save everything. But anyway, okay, thank you.
Well, following that, Dana's opinion, if the decision was not to demolish the building, what would be the next step for you guys? What will you guys do?
Well, we haven't really thought through that part, because when we bought the structure, we were under the impression that we could go, that was kind of the plan. So we haven't thought through like what would next steps be for us, because I've been inside of the building. It's lots of mold. I mean, I'm trying to explain the downward steps to get to the, can I let Kenyon speak on behalf of and Dr. Ford, if you guys want to speak.
Yeah, just identify yourself and sign in. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Kenyon Morgan. I'm a retired architect in Oklahoma City, and I've also was Director of Development for the Oklahoma City Housing Authority decades ago, and but I've renovated a lot of buildings in Oklahoma City, and I've worked with a lot of nonprofits, YWCA, Catholic Charities, and other organizations to look at buildings and try to assess them, whether they can be reused or not. And and in some cases they can be, in some cases they can't. A good example is the Wesley Center, which was sitting on the site right across the street, and we loved that building, wanted to renovate it, but when we really started looking at it, there were 7 different levels in that building because it had been added on to, and it was a church to begin with, and so by the time we assessed it for the American Disabilities Act and all the new stairways complying with codes and everything else, that took up about 40% of the usable space in the building. So, you know, it just was not feasible. So we were able to design a building that I think basically meets the requirements even better of the regulations 59.13500E.3, which I've read the report and that Laura has done, and I've studied it, and I think there's several things in there that sort of demonstrate why this building cannot be renovated successfully. I think the first thing is that if you look at there are 5 things starting on page 3 that the staff report talks about, that how to evaluate the guideline for evaluating demolition. First one is design, form, and urban character. The second is significance. The third is structural integrity. The fourth is economic feasibility. The fifth one is demolition with accompanying proposal for replacement. Well, the 2 that were not, when the staff got down to the review, they did not really evaluate this and give any verbiage for number 1, design, form, and urban character, and 4, economic feasibility. Well, I think the very first one that is so important here, is it feasible? And I've evaluated lots of buildings in my life, and under economic feasibility, this is citing from your guidelines, to evaluate whether it says there is no viable economic use of the structure. For purposes of this paragraph, the term no viable economic use shall mean the existing structure is incapable of earning a reasonable economic return. And you know, I did a neighborhood plan for Riverside 50 years ago when it was NSO, And at that time, there was a viable community around there. It was low income, but it was a thriving community. And this church was an important part of that community. But 50 years later, that community's gone. And well, I mean, there's still some there, but also you've got the Catholic Church there, which most of the people living there are probably of the Catholic faith rather than than the Church of Nazarene or whatever was the original part of this church. So, I don't think this can be reused as a church. So then you're really looking at adopting this for some other use, an office or, a lawyer's office, or you just try to imagine what this could be used as. And unfortunately, the building has no entry level on the ground floor. So you have to build a ramp up. You've seen this on the side. You have to, the ramp's going to be about 70 feet long. But by the time you meet all the requirements for platform, for level turnaround radiuses at the start and the end of each ramp and so forth. So, and you could say, okay, we're going to, and then you don't have the stairways. You're going to need 2 new stairways in the building, and then you're going to need an elevator. And by the time you do all this, you're going to eat up a lot of that interior space of the building. I think we'll face the same thing that we faced when we looked at the building that was the Wesley Center. And yes, you could add some of those things on the outside, but then you just destroy whatever character that this church represents. Now, I will sort of get into that in a few minutes when we go under the urban form, but okay, number 2 of this is a structure cannot reasonably be adapted or rehabilitated for any other use which would result in a reasonable economic return. Again, I've evaluated a lot of buildings in my lifetime, and this is not one that I just can't imagine. If it was really a structure that had a lot of architectural detail, a house like, I mean, this is really, the design is not a church design, it's a residential design. But it doesn't have the characteristics of an office that you see. Sometimes lawyers will renovate offices but those are really significant structures with lots of detailing. And this is not that. So I think this goes on to another one. So you've got economic feasibility, and this was not evaluated in the staff report, but I think this does not meet the economic feasibility that is in your own guidelines. The other one is the second was design form or urban character. Again, under design form or urban character, it says, staff shall make a recommendation or determination, if applicable, regarding whether the removal of the structure will have an adverse impact on the design form or urban character of the district. For purposes of this section, the terms design form and urban character shall mean the architectural components of the building materials and other distinctive elements or structures create a cohesive theme and standard of quality within the urban environment. Honestly, they don't. But also, you have to look at the report also talks about in another part of the report, it talks about what are the historical resources of a building. It says, defines it existing buildings and character defining architectural features such as building mass, roofs, exterior walls, doors, windows, and architectural detailing should be retained, refurbished, and remain in the original locations. Now, to be honest with you, this building has none of those. So, I think the urban character of this district can be much better defined by doing a building like we did north of this. And if you go back, there was an adjacent side there where this was on one side and the other building was on the other side. That building addressed the street. there's another one that even goes further. And it has sidewalks all around it. It addressed where people could, there's another one from the front. This is the back. Okay, here it is. Okay, so, here we put the parking lot in back. We kept the building along both street lines, and then at the intersections, we had this building that you saw in buildings that were built at this age of commercial structures, and they would have a corner entry, and they would have, so it was defined by awnings and so forth. So I think you can really address this whole district much better by a new building. I know NSL will love the building they have, or at least they tell me that, and I'm not sure if they do or not. But I mean, I think this is a chance to really make. I mean, you got the Little Flower Church on the northeast corner. You have this now on that's on the northwest corner. This on the northeast corner. You have Riverside School. You can see in the background here, and this lot deserves more, and I think will help the whole district to really do for NSO to provide services that are desperately needed, but do it in a fashion that maximizes the dollars they're going to spend to make it a building that actually addresses their needs. And also, if you look at the purpose and intent of the demolition guidelines on page 3, it says, it says purpose and intent. It says it is appropriate to evaluate the impact of the proposed demolition of a structure on the district as a whole. It says in some cases, demolition or removal of an existing structure may have an adverse effect on the quality and character of the district. I don't think this would have an adverse effect demolishing this building. But it also goes along and says, however, in other cases, demolition or removal of an existing structure may be appropriate to provide for the continued growth and vitality of the district and may facilitate economic development or otherwise improve a district's appearance or viability. I think this very much, demolishing this building and making way for a new building and not having to go through and paying a lot of money to come and try to show all this, I think this allows them to get along and start serving people in this area soon. And honestly, this district and the whole city and coming along Walker will be much more attractive to attractive other uses here if NSO is allowed to proceed immediately with trying to design their new building.
Laura, I have a quick question for
Yes.
you. In your staff recommendations, option 2, that is acknowledging the building as a historic resource yet approving the application, does the acknowledgement of the building as a historic resource carry any actual weight for the actions of this committee, or is it simply lip service?
I'm going to defer to.
I'm not
Katie.
sure I understand your question. Sorry.
Is there any action that comes out of approving this application while acknowledging the building as a historic resource versus not acknowledging the building as a historic resource?
There's no, it wouldn't
Same
trigger
effect.
anything. It's more a matter of this committee continuing to, when you review a demolition, setting a bar, establishing a threshold for what is and is not historic, which I think is a very important part of this work, that we are identifying and defining what is historically significant to the city of Oklahoma City, regardless of whether or not it's feasible to save that structure. So that's why you had two options there.
Got it,
There,
understood.
we are recognizing that there are times when a historic structure can't be saved, but that doesn't mean that we say it's not, has no significance. So,
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion.
Yeah. Can I ask one more question?
Please,
though?
please do.
But, so basically, if we do say we recognize it is a historic resource, that doesn't actually, but we can still ask to have it torn down. We're not conflicting. Okay.
No, that's what number 2
And so we
is
can,
all about on
so
there.
we can create our own fourth one?
You can always do that. You can modify these, you can come up with your own.
I have one question as well before we continue.
If the architect's up here talking about everything.
Yeah, so if you did get approved to demolish the building, do you already have a plan? And do you already have the funds and costs for all of that in order to demolish the building?
That's what I was referring to earlier. We just bought the structure, so time for fundraising for this particular building that Kenyon was referring to, we knew that it was coming. We actually received notice that it was condemned due to some life safety issues. And so we were displaced for 4 years while we raised the funds, the 3.1 million, to renovate this structure. At the time, we didn't own the building. And so we had to go through a lot of steps. So we did have the time. We were able to do all the conceptual planning and design. So we had the time before we came to the committee, before we demoed that. With this one, the opportunity came up. We took it, and so we haven't developed those conceptual renderings or any kind of plans.
But you do have, it's in place for you to be able to demolish it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because what triggered this whole thing was the demolition contractor submitted for a demo permit.
Okay.
And I reached out to them, and they're used to me calling him and saying, hey.
So you do have the funds for demo?
We do,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, but that's what I was getting at, and then just thinking about timeline, that then you would have to fundraise for whatever next project you wanted to do, so this lot would be empty for a significant amount of time, right? So, you know, that's, to Dana's concern, that by the time that you pick a project, if we're no longer the committee that's reviewing, and then it ends up being just a parking lot and no longer a building that's serving the community, which is the historical significance of this particular lot.
And we can get to work quickly. We do have a couple of projects that are underway right now. We've got some exciting renovations that are happening with a couple of our other buildings. So we definitely can start working on this. But like I said, it's been part of our strategic initiative to have a bigger footprint. And we're no stranger to fundraising, that's for sure. So we can definitely start that. We can start working with our donors, our funders, and I think it will be an exciting project.
I do think that it still is a historic business, and building and not mine, but I think the architect did say something that lot deserves a lot better, and I agree with that 100%. This lot deserves a lot better. Whether it's, except for maybe not a parking lot.
So
yeah.
I meant to point this out to all of y'all because you have been involved. When you look down the street here on this view, down on the right, and you see something that's kind of tall and black, that was a house that you all were involved in when they wanted to put solar panels on it. So I just wanted to tell you, that is one of the houses that has been completed.
He was a civil engineer, wasn't he? The one with the solar panel, he was a civil engineer.
Mark,
Bennett Johnson?
he's a planner.
Mark's house.
Was it Mark? Oh, and I thought it was.
Yeah, he's a city planner, sorry. Just one of us. But I was going to point that out because you've been involved there. No, they're not. Some things kind of changed. The house is on the market, so he did not go to that expense. But if they had been, I'd have taken pictures so that we could confirm, yes, where we landed was the right decision. So, but haven't done that, been able to do that yet.
We always make the
I
right
do
decision.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I do have one last question. Do you guys have plans to continue the Angel Ministry services while demolition is going on?
Oh yeah, we'll figure out a way to continue that for sure. They expect it, and they're unhoused. It's not like you can give a notice or something, but from talking to Chris Cates, who we've got with Midwest Wrecking, he said he could come in there and do it pretty quickly.
Yeah,
So
a
I don't
day.
think that it
I mean,
would
I
disrupt
don't mean
our-
like while demolition, but like while this project is moving along, doing some
Oh,
sort of
yeah, we can
service.
definitely figure out a way to figure out that, for sure. We've got, connections with all of our neighbors, like maybe it's the LCDA, or maybe, I don't know exactly what that would look like, but we would definitely figure out a way to continue that. Since it's mobile and they come in, they don't necessarily need like a structure, so.
Well, and since you have also the space, the warehouse space, or garage space, right?
No, that
That's not
warehouse
ours.
doesn't go with them. That's another
okay.
business. They go down to it.
Gotcha.
We thought it was owned by Wynn, but when we reached out, it's not. It's owned by a private individual. So we did try to reach out. So.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I just have a general comment. I really like what you did to the north, your current building that you operate out of. So if you could do something like that and mirror that on the south side where this structure is, that would be great, because I would not want to see a parking lot either. So.
Yeah, we don't want to.
Census says no parking lots, please.
As Kenyon said, he said, I think they like their building. We love our building. We've been there for almost 10 years. And really, when we opened up our services, we thought, oh, we're never going to be able to use all this space. What is going on here? And then I think as the community saw us back in the neighborhood and saw how nice our facilities were, I mean, it just became more and more and more of a service provider. We just became more visible and visible. So I definitely know that it won't just be a parking lot. We've got too much work to do to be just a parking lot. But with the lower park there, it does mitigate a parking need that we have. We are a part of the OU College of Dentistry, so lots of dentists are there every week. So I mean, we definitely need lots of parking, but we will not just have a parking lot.
And we've had a conversation, and she knows it can be multiple stories. Because I have no height limit in there because of the downtown design district. So whatever their needs are, they ought to be able to accommodate them.
Thank you.
And this one is a one-story, just because, like Kenyon said, when we were working through the conceptual planning at the time when we were raising $3.1 million, it was a lot, and that was adding more and more money to the fundraising goal, and so, like he said, taking up a lot of our square footage, and so we just opted to go with the one story. So
I'd like to make a motion to acknowledge the building as a historic resource and approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Scenic River Overlay Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff report.
Prado, second.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
thank you all.
Item 7, other business, none. Item 8, communications. There was a lot of administrative approval reports. Anything to report back to us, Laura?
Yeah, let me look at this and see. Well, you didn't have a meeting last month, so a lot of times when that happens, we end up with signs. So I'm trying to see if there's any. Well, we have some stuff just across the street in this neighborhood of adding on to what is already a garage apartment and creating another unit. It's over on the other side of Little Flower Church. We've got a couple of fourplexes. It's down at the south extent of the neighborhood, literally half a block from the other design district down there, which is for Capitol Hill. And that's in an area where there hasn't been new construction in a really long time. So some repairs down at Riversport and just some additional signage things. So that'll kind of morph into me going on to say, yes, you have a meeting next month. So we will be getting with you. We have a PUD. Yes? Your meeting was scheduled for July 3rd. And that was going to be the next thing that I was going to say. So we have a couple of rezonings that should be ready for you to go. We changed the date of your meeting. I went to Wednesday because the 4th is a holiday. But hopefully we won't have an issue when we do quorum call, because some people might take that opportunity to take a few days off and go out of town. And we appreciate all of you showing up and bearing with us as we are going into continuing through the process of the reorg We're not there yet, so we still need all of you. But we're I guess we can see the finish line in the distance, so we're approaching it.
So the committee consolidation will go to Planning Commission for recommendation next week, and then we anticipate it going to 3 council meetings in July, and then it would take effect. We're not going to do with emergency, so that we have plenty of time to get people, play musical chairs with everybody and get the 2, reconfigured committees up and running. So into the summer before anything changes.
So keep us on your calendar, please.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you for the updates. And next scheduled meeting, like we said, July 3rd. I'm assuming it's the same time, start time?
It is.
Okay, excellent. Well, we'll see each other then. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.